海之中，
Amidst the crowd, you
你
might
可能
never have
从未
noticed
留意
them.
过它。
Their identities are ever-changing, and they are hard to track.
身份多变，
Cunning and deceitful, they might even change their gender.
行踪难觅，
Lurking in the shadows, they move about stealthily, blending into our everyday lives. They can disguise themselves as anyone, but among the vast crowd, there's you and me. To safeguard national security, 1.4 billion of us, each a line of defense, must fortify the people's defenses and protect our nation.
This is the Chinese Communist Party's CCP's anti-espionage propaganda. China is currently launching a nationwide campaign to identify and hunt for spies. On August 15th, the official Weibo account of China's Ministry of State Security published an article titled "Those Hidden Little Gadgets," listing various items that threaten the CCP's security. These include hidden cameras inside pens and cameras which spies could use to photograph confidential documents secretly. Listening devices hidden in lighters and tissue boxes could be used for eavesdropping. Even drones that look like dragonflies could be used for intelligence gathering. The article claimed that these little gadgets have hidden functions like eavesdropping, photographing, sensing, and transmitting. Once used for espionage, they become specialized spy equipment, threatening the security of the CCP. The article also cited an example: a Chinese company sent a delegation abroad to participate in a major development project bid. During a meal at a restaurant, a man handed them a box of tissues and they later discovered a device resembling a USB stick inside the box. They immediately reported it to the local Chinese embassy. The suspicious device was sent back to China, where the security agency tested and confirmed that it was a spy tool used for foreign intelligence agencies, disguised as a regular USB stick with two tiny microphones and an encrypted recording function. The Ministry of State Security warned that no individual or organization is allowed to illegally produce, sell, possess, or use such equipment. Violators will be dealt with and severely punished according to the law. Netizens mocked, saying the script writers at the Ministry of State Security need to up their game. A tissue box with a device inside during a meal? Who would take a tissue box home? It's too far-fetched. Another netizen joked, next time when eating out overseas, we should smash the plates and bowls to see if anything is hidden inside. It's so absurd. Who still uses a pen these days? Young people vape. Hardly anyone uses lighters anymore, right? If a camera doesn't have a lens, should it have a gun barrel instead? I can confirm the Ministry of State Security is right. They missed one thing though. People can also carry transmitters in their stomachs. The CCP has turned national security into a child's game of playing in the mud. Following the Ministry of State Security's WeChat account is more entertaining than watching the news. Since the CCP implemented the newly revised anti-espionage law on July 1st last year, the usually low-profile Ministry of State Security has frequently posted on social media, with state media also carrying out large-scale propaganda encouraging the public to report spies to each other. Some of the so-called espionage cases revealed by officials have sparked public ridicule, leading many to believe that the CCP has become overly paranoid, making everyone feel endangered. This massive society-wide anti-espionage movement is seen by many as a sign that China's President Xi Jinping's regime is rapidly steering China back towards the Cultural Revolution era. One man dressed in black stated,
To uncover spies hiding among Chinese who have changed their nationality, there's an effective method. Simply investigate their family history for 3 generations, particularly those in leadership and decision-making roles.
Netizens remarked that familiar decade is back. The campaigns have begun again. They did this in the 60s and 70s, rooting out spies, catching spies, investigating 3 generations of identities. It got the flavor of the Red Guards, led by then CCP chairman Mao Zedong, all over it. Radio Free Asia reported that a netizen living in Japan said that she was interrupted during a more than hour-long phone call with her uncle in Nanjing by a knock on his door from community committee staff asking who he's talking to and why he was chatting with someone overseas for so long. Several overseas Chinese have reported being interrupted by community managers while talking to family or friends in China and being told not to communicate with people abroad. The reason they were given: too many scam calls. We're worried you might get scammed. One overseas Chinese mentioned that a friend in Shanghai told him, "There's a campaign going on right now. Don't call me unless it's something urgent." The CCP has also extended the nationwide anti-espionage campaign to schools. In June, China's Ministry of State Security sent staff to primary and secondary schools in Beijing to educate students on national security. This included information on security risks associated with cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence, AI. Some teachers told overseas media that the CCP is urging everyone to report spies around them, including involving children, creating an atmosphere where everyone is paranoid and it's getting out of hand. Such high-profile propaganda will ultimately lead to severe divisions among people. Spouses, families, classmates, friends, and colleagues will all disrupt each other. Society will be thrown into an immense turmoil, and a second cultural revolution will be unavoidable. Former Global Times editor-in-chief Hu Xinjing and Chinese Communist Party Committee Secretary of Global Times posted on social media, "The whole society participation in anti-espionage should not become a massive movement to catch spies. Public participation in anti-espionage should directly or strictly follow legal channels. Whether suspicious people and things should be labeled as espionage ultimately need to be rigorously assessed by the national security departments and dealt with according to the law. All those suspected of espionage activities should receive full legal recourse to ensure judicial fairness." Hu also mentioned preventing foreign-related personnel from being unduly restricted, opposing false accusations, and opposing the use of espionage charges to harm people. China needs both national security and development. Hu's views were immediately attacked by pro-CCP commentators and Little Pinks, who questioned why he opposed the state's major decision to catch spies, accusing him of siding with spies. Hu's intention was likely to whitewash the CCP, proving that the anti-espionage campaign is based on a legal foundation and not just random or blind arrest. Unfortunately, the Little Pinks failed to grasp Hu's good intentions and instead launched an all-out attack on him, showing their lack of intelligence. Netizens, however, saw through Hu Xinjing's intentions, flooding the comments on Weibo. "Ordinary people have no qualifications to be spies. Spies are in important departments. Mobilizing the whole society to catch spies, here comes another mass political movement. Once everyone's involved, it gets interesting. You criticize me, I criticize you, the grassroots harm each other, it's a lot of fun. Spies are around everyone. Anyone could be a spy. Everyone, keep your eyes wide open and stay vigilant. Don't fall into deep slumber when you sleep at night. Fight until the world is turned upside down, surpassing the US and the UK is just around the corner." China's anti-espionage law stipulates that the government commands or rewards those who contribute to catching spies. Major contributors can receive awards of more than 100,000 RMB. In June, China's Ministry of State Security announced on its official social media account that over the past 2 years, 2 people had received rewards of more than 100,000 RMB. 44 people had received between 30,000 and 100,000 RMB, and 125 people had received between 10,000 and 30,000 RMB. Some foreign media have claimed that China is establishing a mechanism for the entire population to report exposed espionage activities. In recent years, Chinese officials have increasingly emphasized the threat posed by spies, arresting some foreign citizens, accusing them of espionage, and demanding public confessions, claiming their home country's intelligence agency recruited them to engage in espionage activities.
I deeply regret it. I want to tell all Chinese people, their sweet words are nothing but lies.
The elderly man in the video is named Zhong Xinwang Lun, a Hong Kong resident living in the United States. According to the video, Lun moved to the US in 1983 to run a restaurant. The US intelligence agency fabricated an impressive resume for him and directed him to take on roles in various Chinese American communities like donations and Enter China. He frequently participated in social activities, mingling with people from all walks of life in China and gathering intelligence through various means like ingratiation, spying, monitoring, and entrapment. He even attempted to coerce Chinese officials visiting the US on official business into defecting. On May 15, 2023, the Suzhou Intermediate People's Court in China announced that 78-year-old Lun, who holds dual citizenships in Hong Kong and the US, were sentenced to life imprisonment for espionage, stripped of his political rights for life, and fined 500,000 RMB. The court mentioned that Lun had been under investigation for suspected espionage activity since April 15, 2021. Ironically, Lun was the president of the Texas-based pro-CCP organization, the China's Council for the Promotion of Peaceful National Reunification, and a patriotic leader among the overseas Chinese community. According to Voice of America, a former Trump administration official who wished to remain anonymous stated that they didn't believe Lun was necessarily a US spy or double agent. He believed that to the CCP they call a stag a horse, sometimes they do as they please. But generally, many of the CCP's counterintelligence departments need to account to the top leaders, so they just keep arresting people. Interestingly, on May 4, 2023, the U.S. District Court in Massachusetts indicated U.S. citizen Liang Litang, accusing him of acting as an agent for the Chinese government between 2018 and 2022. He allegedly provided Beijing with photos, information on anti-China dissidents, organized counter-protests against pro-democracy activists, and supplied potential recruitment lists to Chinese security agency. Liang similarly was a co-president of the Boston-based China Council for the Promotion of Peaceful National Reunification. In just a few days, leaders of this pro-CCP organization in two different locations, one was indicted by US authorities as an agent of a foreign government, and the other was sentenced to life imprisonment by a Chinese court for espionage. Netizens have expressed that it's tough being a patriotic overseas Chinese leader nowadays, caught between a rock and a hard place. It's not just Chinese Americans becoming targets of the CCP's espionage crackdown. Even employees of foreign companies in China could be arrested for espionage. On August 21st, Kyodo News reported, citing Japanese government sources, that a Japanese employee of Astellas Pharma, who had been detained in Beijing since March 2022 for alleged espionage, had been formally indicted by Chinese prosecutors. A spokesperson for Astellas Pharma confirmed that an executive from their Chinese subsidiary had been indicted but declined to comment further due to ongoing legal proceedings. The Japanese government is working to secure the man's early release. He was a senior official at the Japanese Chamber of Commerce and Industry in China and is in his 50s. There are concerns that his prolonged detention could negatively impact Japanese investments and bilateral relations in China. Japanese media reports that under Xi Jinping's leadership, China has increasingly emphasized national security in political, economic, and cultural fields, intensifying surveillance of foreign companies. Since the implementation of China's anti-espionage law in 2024, 17 Japanese nationals, including the Astellas Pharma employee, have been detained on espionage charges. According to Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, 5 of them remain in custody. After the new versions of China anti-espionage law took effect on July 1st, 2023, there has been a significant increase in cases of Taiwanese citizens being interrogated when entering or leaving China. They are not only questioned by the border about whether their phones contain anti-CCP content, but are even approached by state security after checking into hotels. Taiwanese authorities have warned their citizens to be cautious of being wrongfully accused while in China. On August 13, China's Ministry of State Security claimed in a WeChat post that, in the face of the arrogant forces of the Taiwan independent movement, it had cracked over 1,000 Taiwanese espionage cases and dismantled a large number of espionage networks established in mainland China. However, scholars argue that there is no way to prove whether so many Taiwanese spies cases have been uncovered. While China is mobilizing the entire society to hunt for spies, the US and other Western countries accuse China of engaging in espionage and cyber attacks, which China denies. The latest case involves Tang Yuanjun and Wang Shujun, overseas Chinese pro-democracy activists accused of monitoring dissidents in the US on behalf of China. On August 21st, the U.S. Department of Justice accused Tang of receiving instructions from China's Ministry of State Security since 2018 to spy on overseas Chinese pro-democracy activists and dissidents and to report the information back to China. He also allegedly helped Chinese intelligence infiltrate encrypted chat groups used by dissidents. Tang was once a Chinese citizen who had been imprisoned in China for his dissident activities. He later sought political asylum in the US and became a US citizen. Not long ago, Wang Shujing, a Chinese-American scholar long active in the overseas Chinese pro-democracy movement, was convicted by a federal court in New York of acting as an agent for the Chinese government, illegally possessing identification and making false statements to law enforcement. On August 6, a jury in the Eastern District of New York found him guilty on all 4 counts, and he now faces up to 25 years in prison. Commentators suggest that Beijing's actions are intended to send a warning to the West and intimidate its people. Intimidating the populace has always been a tactic of the CCP. They fear their misdeed in the country might be exposed to the outside world, so they try to scare those who provide information to foreign media by labeling them as spies. At the same time, they use national security as a pretext to threaten foreign companies operating in China, leveraging this as a bargaining chip in negotiations with the West. A former senior member of China's public security system, now living in exile, pointed out the CCP has launched this massive anti-espionage campaign to create an atmosphere of hostility towards the West. Now, returning Chinese nationals are the primary targets for surveillance. When Reuters reported on the revised anti-espionage law that took effect on July 1, 2023, it highlighted that the law prohibits the transmission of information related to national security and interests, but the specific scope of this information is not clearly defined. The revision also allows espionage investigation agencies to access data, electronic devices, and personal property, raising U.S. concerns that foreign companies in China could be punished for normal business activities. On May 8, 2023, National Security Agency in Suzhou visited the local branch of consulting firm Capvision, questioning the company's employees. This joint enforcement action was part of a nationwide operation in Shanghai, Beijing, Suzhou, and Shenzhen. In its report, CCTV reported that Capvision was accused of seeking out influential experts in domestic policy research, defense, and other sensitive areas who leaked sensitive content and even state secrets and intelligence during consultations with foreign clients. The report mentioned that among Capvision's expert was a former employee of a state-owned enterprise who had been sentenced to 6 years in prison, as well as a defense expert. The report quoted China's National Security Agency as saying that Capvision accepted a large number of consulting projects from foreign companies in sensitive Chinese industries, some of which had close ties to foreign governments, militaries, and intelligence agencies. Expert consulting is Capvision's main service, contributing 80% of its revenue. According to public records, by 2021, the company had nearly 400,000 experts from corporations, academia, and other fields in its network. Before the investigation into Capvision in March 2023, 5 Chinese employees of the U.S. due diligence firm Amidst Group were detained in Beijing. In April, Chinese police raided the Shanghai office of Bain & Company and questioned its employees. This series of investigations into foreign companies has led some observers to question whether China is expanding its anti-espionage efforts into the business sector, deepening foreign businesses' concerns about the business environment in China. Luisa Santos, Deputy Director General of Business Europe, a lobbying group representing companies across the EU, warned the new laws restricting data flows out of China, along with severe punishments under the revised anti-espionage law, have alarmed foreign investors. She pointed out that European regulation requires stricter due diligence on issues like forced labor, meaning companies need to enhance supply chain compliance and traceability. But the CCP has been cracking down on due diligence firms, detaining employees of Amidst Group in China and investigating other firms like Capvision, making compliance more difficult. Santosh said that if companies encounter difficulties in meeting supply chain traceability requirements, or if that information is not accurate or positive, then there's a very high risk of disengagement from the Chinese market. During the interview with Beijing, Santosh added, if people are afraid you could be going to jail in China by sharing data with Europe, then you have to make some difficult choices, and this could effectively lead to the decoupling that we all want to avoid. Michael Hart, president of the American Chamber of Commerce in China, noted that after 3 years of COVID restrictions, geopolitical tensions, and challenges in US-China relations, getting companies to reinvest in China would not be easy. Jens Eskelund, president of the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China, observed that no new small and medium-sized companies have entered the Chinese market since late 2019.